Can't go over it.
Can't go over it.
Can't go under it.
Can't go under it.
Can't go around it.
Can't go around it.
I guess we'll go through it.
I guess we'll go through it.
We're going on a bear hunt.
We're going on a bear hunt.
We're gonna catch a big one.
We're gonna catch a big one.
With big green eyes.
Big green eyes.
And a fuzzy little tail.
And a fuzzy little tail.
Look over there.
Look over there.
It's a cave.
It's a cave.
Can't go over it.
Can't go over it.
Can't go under it.
Can't go under it.
Over there.
Can't go around it.
Can't go around it.
I guess we'll go through it.
I guess we'll go through it.
Get out your flashlight. Turn it on.
Hello.
It's cold in here.
It's fine to see it in the organized territory.
Two big green eyes.
Big green
And
eyes.
a fuzzy little tail.
And a fuzzy little tail.
It's a bear.
It's a bear.
We're going on bear hunt.
Swim across the Peanut River. Go through the candy factory. Go home.
Go home.
Open the door. Shut the door. We went on a bear hunt.
We went on a bear hunt.
And we weren't afraid.
And we weren't afraid.
Get out your backpack. Open them up. Let's put in some crackers in case we get hungry. And let's put in a thermos of milk in case we get thirsty. Oh, and don't forget your flashlight in case it's dark. Pick them up and repeat after me. We're going on a bear hunt.
We're going on a bear hunt.
We're gonna catch a big one.
We're gonna catch a big one.
With big green eyes.
With big green eyes.
And a fuzzy little tail.
And a fuzzy little tail.
Look over there.
Look over there.
It's a candy factory.
It's a candy factory.
Can't go over it.
Can't go over it.
Can't go under it.
Can't go under it.
There's
Can't
I got my
go
seat.
around
What
it.
about the rest of
Can't
you?
go
I got my
around
seat.
it.
I guess we'll go through it.
I guess we'll go through it.
We're going on a bear hunt.
We're going on a bear hunt.
We're gonna catch a big
We're
one.
gonna catch a big one.
With big green eyes.
Big green eyes.
And a fuzzy little tail.
And a fuzzy little tail.
Look over there.
Look over there.
It's a peanut butter river.
What the?
Peanut butter river.
Can't go under it.
Can't go over it.
Can't go under it.
Can't go under it.
Can't go around it.
You know what I'm saying? I don't know where it's going,
Across it.
but you know what I'm saying? You know, hit my digits one time, you know.
Let's get out those
Hit my digits, you know what I'm saying?
And the thermos of
You know what I'm saying? Me and Jason be singing.
Right.
All right.
We're going on a bear
You know what I'm
hunt.
saying?
Going on a bear hunt.
We're gonna catch a big
We're
one.
gonna catch a big
Big green eyes.
Big green eyes.
And a fuzzy little tail.
And a fuzzy little tail.
Look over there.
Look over there.
It's the jello.
It's the jello.
Stop that one over here.
Can't go over it.
Can't go under it.
Can't go under it.
Can't go around it.
Can't go around it.
We're going on a bear hunt. We're gonna catch a big one.
Gonna catch a big one.
With big green eyes.
Big green eyes.
And a fuzzy little tail.
And a fuzzy little tail.
Look over there.
Look over there.
It's a cave.
It's a cave.
Can't go over it.
Can't go over it.
Can't go under it.
Can't go under it.
Can't go around it.
This is the organized side of the classroom. Everybody needs a big organized side. Get out of my front chair. Get out of my front chair. Alright, everybody to the organized territory. No, some of y'all have seats and you are not sharing. Some of y'all need to find a share partner. Find someone willing to share with you.
Open the door.
All right. So if you got an earwig right now, you're probably going on a bear hunt with me. But hey, you cannot sit in your ears. You're gonna have to join the rest of the country somewhere else. Who wonders what's going on right now? Who wonders what's going on right now? Probably all y'all wonder what's going on right now. All right, I'm gonna explain to you, but I need some helpers. Who's willing to help me out? All right, I saw several hands along the way. Let me get Lakira first thing first. Lakira, come on up, Lakira. Hey, sometimes I'll spin the wheel for random selections, and sometimes I'll just pick along the way. Lakira.
Oh, Lord.
Oh yeah, I need you to put this on. Did I lose some volunteers now? It goes over your head. Goes over your head. Thank you.
I don't want to wheel.
You'll figure it out. All right. Kyra's getting dressed. Let me get Allison and Travion. Allison and Travion.
This is too tight. Hold on.
That's right. You put that over your head. There it is. All right, Lakira, your spot is behind the podium. Behind the podium. There you go. Okay.
Come on.
You might not know exactly what's going on, but you're gonna. Hey, welcome, Mr. Powell, to the disorganized territory versus organized territory. Who do you need? All right, here we go. I got Allison and Travion. Allison and Travion, y'all get a hat each. And I got one blouse here, so I'll let y'all decide who's gonna fit that blouse. You two are gonna go hang out in St. Louis. I need one more. Who's gonna be? I need one more. I saw a strong hand from Austin in the back. Austin, come on up. He was for fastest finger. Fastest finger wins sometimes. Ooh, hey, you two, I got one. There you go. Put that across your body. All right, you gotta put your back down. Back down. You gotta put this on, like the military tyrant you are. Like this. You're gonna be into the active.
You don't talk.
There it is.
Yes, like dead serious.
I know there might still be some questions, haven't fully explained everything. My volunteers, those of you who put yourself out there, got a little script I want you to walk through, okay? So, Austin, you're gonna be number 2 there. Lakira from the podium, you're gonna be number 1 there. And then the dynamic duo out in St. Louis, stand up for me. So notice some labels, they're hanging out in the city of St. Louis. We're gonna talk about why, me too. Are we trading?
Oh, good. How are you?
Are you not all in? He's not. You look good.
I took my nails off.
I should have said that you're gonna have some lines in the script. You want to try?
I'm sorry.
All right, I need a volunteer to trade with Lakira. Knowing what's going on, who wants to trade with Lakira? What number you got? You in?
Number 1.
Let's go. All right, swap with Benet here real quick. All right, should have.
Ow.
Sorry.
Okay, I wouldn't have said that. Oh,
Oh,
y'all gotta put me on game.
All right. We're situated. Now, but now you're number one.
How you say that? Because I hear I keep hearing what's name.
Now, my volunteers, I'm looking for some enthusiasm in your voice. I know I haven't fully explained everything yet. That's part of it. Those of y'all hanging out in the great organized states of America, just pay attention. It's all going to make sense. It's all going to come together. So you're going to walk through this little script, and I want y'all to kind of start guessing as to what characters are in play as they walk through this story here. Okay, so I believe it starts with President Benet. Go ahead.
Number one.
Number one.
Okay. Boy, I sure wish I could have access to a major port city that would connect my country to the Mississippi River. We would be able to do so much business that way.
Boy, I sure would.
Hey man, I wish.
What's a French person sound like? It says French accent.
So
You need to have some baguettes. You need to find your baguettes.
Hey man, I have a port city for sale over there. It's called New Orleans. It's just after so to connect to the Mississippi River. You understand? You interested?
Are you interested?
Wow, what are the chances of that? I am interested. How much are you asking for it?
I need some
Is that number
makeup.
one?
How much do you want
I
to pay
need some
for it?
makeup.
So we're having a little whisper conversation, but speak up a little bit so they can hear you. Listen up.
Well, it's very important to me. I'm not really sure if I'm allowed to spend my country's money like this, but if I'm willing to sell, I think we could afford $100 million.
$10 million. Yeah, you know what? Let's see what he's gonna offer. Say the next one there.
So how much did you say?
How much did you say?
You know what, buddy? I actually have a whole chunk of land that I'd be willing to part with for the nice round number of $15 million. 875,000 square miles from here
The
to
accent.
there. Are you interested in all that?
Wow, that's like 4 cents an acre.
Oh, I read it out loud.
This will like double the size of the spaceship I have right now. I'm not sure if I really have the power to make that deal, but yeah, buddy, you have a deal.
We have a deal. Okay, how about them?
Hey, security man.
Secretary.
Secretary man.
Hey, secretary man.
You are good at hiking and camping and stuff, right?
Yes,
You learned that in the army or something.
Yes, sir.
Well, do I have a job for you? Find yourself a team. Go to the edge of our country and then go past it into all of the unexplored stuff that I just bought. And I just want you to do 3 things. 1, find out if you can get more here to there entirely by water. Draw pictures and take notes on all the plants, animals, and resources you find out there. And 3, extend the full fellowship of the United States to anybody you meet out there. And let them know that you are living in our country now.
On the way, sir. See you there.
Be on the way. Be on the way. Start voting and sing. Clap for our players, please. All right. Now that, y'all go ahead and return to St. Louis. That was round 1 when you didn't really understand who was who. Take what you understand, maybe 8th grade, 5th grade, or just reading on your own. Who do we think that Benet was representing?
George Washington.
John Adams.
Thomas Jefferson.
That is right. Today we were talking about a 3rd president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson. If you'll clip that to your shirt, please. Thomas Jefferson. Who do we think that Foxy Noxy over here may have been representing? I heard it.
Napoleon.
Napoleon. Now, Napoleon Dynamite. No, not Napoleon. Napoleon, right? So, not trying to give us that face right there. That face. I'm not sure if he has the face, but he definitely has the outfit on, right? Outfit works pretty good. So we have Thomas Jefferson.
But they do have a face.
Hey, picture on the left. Napoleon. You want me to do the face?
No, they do have the same face. They really do have the same
Think
face.
they do?
Yes.
He's a little plump.
Just a little
So
bad.
we have Napoleon, and now Timothy jumped right to it. Timothy, who are our characters in St. Louis? Lewis,
Lucy Clark.
Clark. So I'm gonna let you decide who is who. Go ahead and clip that to your shirt. And the reason that Mr. Jefferson had said, "Hey, secretary man," that's because Lewis was his administrative assistant. He was his secretary. So I don't know if you think that's, supposed to be a male or a female, whatever. He was the secretary, but he also had some Army experience. And because of his Army experience and his outdoors frontier, abilities, he sends him off into the wild to explore what are we exploring? Louisiana Purchase. Crushed it. Now that we understand everybody, characters, Thomas Jefferson, Napoleon, Lewis and Clark, I want to point out this is the port of New Orleans. This was the original object that we wanted to purchase. One single port. But Napoleon, what were you willing to sell? Everything. All of this for pretty cheap, right? How many cents per acre? How many cents per acre did you drink? 4 pennies per acre. So what I want to do, I want to run through the script one more time. That was the first time they'd ever read it, right? Cold open. You didn't really know exactly all the words that you're about to say. You all have gained some understanding as well. So it shouldn't be as difficult to run through this time. From the top, knowing who is who, let's do it one more time.
Boy, I sure wish I had the access to a major port city that would connect my country to the Mississippi River. We should be able to do much business that way.
Hey man, I have a port city for sale here. It called New Orleans. It just happens so to connect. It's a good. You interested?
Wow, what are the chances of that? I am interested. How much are you asking for it?
I don't like.
You're not whispering to me?
Oh, yeah. Well, how much do you think that how much can we afford?
Well, it's pretty important to me. I'm not really sure if I'm allowed to spend my country's money like this. But if he's willing to sell, I think we could afford $10 million.
$10 million. Well, let's ask him what he's willing to sell it for.
How much did you say?
You know what, buddy? I actually have a whole chunk of land that I'm willing to part with you for the nice round number of 15 million. It's those 875,000 square miles from here to there. Are you interested in all that?
Wow, that's like 4 cents an acre. This will like double the size of the space I have right now. I'm not sure if I really have the power to make that deal, but yeah, buddy, you have a deal. Hey, security man. You're a good at hiking and camping and stuff, right?
Oh, yes, sir.
You learned that in the army or something? Well, do I have a job for you? Find yourself a team and do the edge of our country and then go past it into all the unexplored stuff that I just bought. And I want you to do the 3 things. 1, find out if you can get more from here to the entirely by water. 2, draw pictures and take notes on all the plans and with the research we found out there. And 3, extend the full fellowship of the United States to anybody you meet out there and let them know they are living in our country now.
On the way, Simpson. Cheers.
And big applause for all our players here today. All right, let's not miss it. Right now, you are sitting in about what portion of the room? You're sitting in about half of the room. Because of this purchase, we opened up our country and did what to the size of it? Doubled it. So go ahead and double the size of your room right now. Get the chairs back to the way they started. Double the size of your Lewis and Clark, Napoleon, and Thomas Jefferson. Let me get your picture real quick, if I may. Y'all go ahead and stand by the screen. I'm just taking pictures. Right. You're a picture. All right, you four, get in. Like the classroom a little bit. 1, 2, 3.
Why y'all so spaced out?
Good night. Good. There it is. All right. Double the size of your classroom. As soon as our chairs are situated, we'll take our bathroom break. Resituate our chairs. Well done. As soon as we're situated, we'll take our bathroom break.
You obviously saw me turn around.
Well done. Just drape it on the chair. Drape it deeply. Here, one of these chairs goes there. Go ahead and put St. Louis right here. All right, let's go take a bathroom break. I know I invited the chaos, so let's settle back down as we take our bathroom break.
What did that go to school?
The best park that you could ever ask for. 3 touchdown park.
Or the 3, just so you get that money.
It worked. That was good.
I think it worked.
Did you look at attendance yet? I know Mia Carver's not here.
I will as soon as I'm back. Yeah, that worked. Next time I'm up front, if you volunteer, you'll have lines. Right. That'll get the right person. Come on in.
Please. You're always doing that.
Come on in. Come on in.
But thank you. In the bed.
Yeah.
All right, today we're going to be on those president notes, the open-ended notes. So pull out to this one, this one. I'm not giving you any other fill in the blanks. It's just this one. We'll be hanging out with Thomas Jefferson today. Okay? That's the paper you need to have in front of you.
You're rude about it.
What we supposed to get now? Bro, we still on these fucking notes.
All right. We have regained the size of our country. We have doubled it in size because of the purchase, the skit that we walked ourselves through. We're on this page today. Actually, be the opposite side where there's Thomas Jefferson. I'm not giving you any fill-in-the-blank notes. So you're on just one page today. We're going to talk Thomas Jefferson. Also, look, there's a block for the Louisiana Purchase. There's a block for the Corps of Discovery, the Lewis and Clark expedition. So you got 3 blocks to be filling in today, but you're only on this one document. You don't have to be bouncing around between 2 pages, kind of like you were in the past couple of days. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make sure we fully understand the skit that we just walked through. And as you were listening, you didn't have a chance to be writing. So what I'm going to do is give you some words on the screen, give you a chance to be writing, okay? I feel like we lived it out, and you guys gained an understanding with some fun along the way. Knox, it was the accent for me. I think that was a little more Jamaican than baguette. But that's why we like to have fun. We just like to have some fun along the way. So, again, remind me of the characters we were dealing with. Who's that on the left? That is Thomas Jefferson. We're talking about our 3rd president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson. I'm going to start off with things related to Louisiana Purchase, but then I'm going to go back to how we got elected. And as we have been doing, I'm going to tell you all about Thomas Jefferson. Now, entering the story here is Napoleon Dynamite. And you may have seen that movie? Yeah, like 2 students in my first block. It's continue to feel very old because the movies I grew up with y'all haven't seen. Napoleon Dynamite is not who we're talking about, but rather Napoleon Bonaparte. What country was he the leader of? France. All right, so France is going to be a part of this story. Napoleon's a part of our story. That's sad Napoleon. I'll explain why he is sad. We had Travion and Allison as the dynamic duo representing our 2 explorers named what? Very commonly, you'll hear Lewis and Clark. You'll very rarely hear one without the other, just like we've talked about certain things that are always connected. Lewis and Clark are always going to go together. It's Meriwether Lewis and William Clark, and I'm going to tell you some specifics about their lives along the way here. They lead a team known as the Corps of Discovery. So when Allison and Travion started to explore the turned over desks, that was like exploring the Louisiana Purchase. What was crazy about the Louisiana Purchase is that Thomas Jefferson bought it sight unseen. Have you ever, those of you that have moved, your family has bought real estate or bought a house, has anybody ever bought real estate, whether land or even a house, sight unseen? Anybody ever done that? That's not a good way to buy something that's going to cost a lot of money. Obviously, people finance their houses for years on end. The house is a big purchase. Usually, you want to look at it before you buy it. Thomas Jefferson buys this chunk of land, massive chunk of land, for $15 million sight unseen. So as soon as he purchases it, what does he want to do? He wants to find out what's there. He wants to explore. He wants to see it. So our explorers lead a group that becomes known as the Corps of Discovery, or the Lewis and Clark expedition, and they go and discover the things that are in the newly purchased land. Now, Benet, reading the script, we did it twice. She said 3 specific things. I'm not going to rehash them right now. I'm going to show you in just a second what those 3 specific things were. Notably, In the Corps of Discovery are two key members. And you can see both of them in this portrait, but I'm going to highlight the two of them right here. On the left-hand side, who is that? Sacagawea. Someone started to say not Pocahontas, right? New female Indian. This is Sacagawea. Sacagawea was a very important member of the Corps of Discovery because what did she do for them? She gave them directions. A translator, absolutely, the two big things. She helped with language and she helped with navigation. What is amazing about Sacagawea's role in the Corps of Discovery is that she's a she. She was a 14-year-old girl who was leading these dozens of white men through the wilderness. What does that show you about her abilities? Leadership, absolutely. Brave. Mature, yeah, especially for her age, maybe even her physique. All of that, it shows that it doesn't matter who you are or how you're born, your contribution to the team is what matters. In the wilderness, now in America, she would have been seen as lesser, right? She would have been seen as a second class. A woman for one, of color for two, she would have been a second class citizen. But in the wilderness, what mattered? Her skills, her ability, her contributions to the team. So I love this picture because it's representative of what happened. But this young woman is leading these two Army captains, white men, through the wilderness. And it just goes to show you, I can't say it enough, it goes to show you the equality that was on the Corps of Discovery in the team. What mattered is what you could bring to the group, to the expedition. It didn't matter your color, and it didn't matter your gender. Now, also in this same picture, who stands out to you as being a little different? The black man, that's right. So he is a slave, not a former slave, but a slave in, Knox, do you remember his name? Why? Why? My world historians, we've talked about this a little bit, but many of you are new to the room. Yep. York. His name is York. Right? That's not, you don't have to memorize that too much, right? His name is York. York, on this side of the Mississippi River was what? Was a slave. As soon as they crossed through the gateway into the unorganized territory, what was York? Member of the team. Member of the team. Free perhaps because he was outside of the laws of the United States, but more than that he was just an equal member of the team. He contributed by his strength and his knowledge. He was seen by what he could bring to the team. It didn't really matter his skin color or his previous bondage. And again, once you got into the wild, away from the organized, but into the wild, what mattered to the team is what you could bring to the team. So another example of equality. There's some awesome examples from this adventure, like Allison and Travion, right, were leading the adventure, where every now and then they would take a vote. Hey, should we go left or should we go right? Should we stop here for the night or should we go on, right? They take a democratic vote. Just like I might say, all right, raise your hand if you want pizza or raise your hand if you want cookies, right? Take a vote. York was a voting member of the team. Everybody had, Anthony said pizza, everybody had one vote on the team. Man, woman, black, white, everybody had one vote. Would York have had a vote in the organized territory? Yeah, he wouldn't, because he was not seen as a citizen at this time in American history. But in the wild, in the disorganized desks, York had a vote. So that's a really cool equality, egalitarian piece of the Corps of Discovery. One more portrait there, just kind of showing you. I imagine these guys trying to get to the highest peak they could find and look out and just see what else is out there, being the first ones to ever see it from the American perspective. Now, there were natives out there, of course, but from an American perspective, these are the first men to ever see the Pacific Ocean. And we're telling the story of how we acquired land from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. So looking at this picture here, you can see this was the United States by the end of the war. And then that red mass is what Thomas Jefferson purchased. That chunk is called the Louisiana Purchase. And up to this point, here's what our country looks like. The blue and the orange put together. Now, we're going to explore into the green and into the tan. But up to this point, our country consists of the land that is in the blue and in the orange. And of course, our class is going to continue talking about how we make it all the way to the Pacific Ocean. It's the old famous song, America the Beautiful, from sea to shining sea. I got to tell you the story of how we get all the way to the Pacific Ocean. And this, of course, is part of it. So that's kind of a rehash of the exercise. Let me put some words on the screen for you here. The Louisiana Purchase. Louisiana Purchase. So at the time, the territory was owned by France. Remember, this is the kind of day where you're gonna put it into your own words. Some of you are gonna want to write every word on the screen. That's fine. But this is under the Louisiana Purchase. This is on your page, on the second page of the Louisiana Purchase. It's actually the very back page, I should say. The very back page, Louisiana Purchase. Anthony sees it. Everybody there? Purchase. All right, here we go. So it was at the time it was owned by France. It was owned by Napoleon and France. France was at war all across Europe. France was at war with England. France was at war with Spain. France was at war with Russia. Napoleon, remember Knox's character? Napoleon wanted to dominate most of Europe, right? He wanted to dominate all of Europe. So having land in the New World, you know what it was to him? It was a nuisance. If he has land in the New World, he has to govern it. He has to protect it. He doesn't have enough soldiers to send to govern or protect that land. So he's ready to get rid of it. He would rather have cash than land. This is the setup to him being willing to sell it to the United States. Originally, Thomas Jefferson only wanted New Orleans. New Orleans is a port city. What's a port good for? Trade, money that comes from it, right? So New Orleans connects the whole Mississippi River. If you have the port of New Orleans, you have access to the whole Mississippi River. Our boundary comes to the Mississippi River, but this is still in French hands. This is not a part of the treaty that we got to have at the time. So New Orleans is still in French hands. We really want New Orleans. Thomas Jefferson is willing to purchase New Orleans for $10 million. At this time, Napoleon, he experiences a revolution in Haiti. Haiti was owned by France, but a group of slaves rose up and rebelled against their French masters. Inspired by the American Revolution, a lot of other independence movements start to pop up around the world. The Haitian Revolution is one of them. So because of the Haitian Revolution, Napoleon says, I just want out of North America. Any land I have, I'm willing to sell it. I'd rather have cash than land. So I'll just make sure I rehashed everything. Jefferson wants the port of New Orleans for trade reasons. It's owned by France. What he does is send delegates to France to negotiate the purchase. In our skit here, Benet was talking directly to Napoleon, right? Jefferson was talking directly to Napoleon. You know how things happen in the real world. There's delegates from America. There's delegates from France. They come together and talk. And that's what was going on. They're trying to negotiate the purchase of just New Orleans. But as very often happens in negotiations, people usually keep their cards close to their chest, right? They don't just lay it out right away. What you got?
Where do we write it
On the very back under Louisiana Purchase.
I know that.
Yep, I got some prompting questions for you. So who sold it, who bought it, for how much? That's the key information. You don't have to write every word. I know some of you want to write every word on the screen. I'm trying to help you realize how to summarize things, right, as I tell the story. Does that make sense? Napoleon, he had his cards to his chest. He was willing to sell all of that territory, and his price was going to be $15 million. Now, $15 million, that is a very low amount of money. I don't have $15 million, right? I mean, I can't walk around and buy something for $15 million. But for a nation, even for a new nation, $15 million wasn't that big amount of money for the land that we were going to get for it. Napoleon had recently lost interest in colonizing the New World. France is involved in so many wars throughout Europe that what they need is money. It's always about the money. So the American delegates learn that Napoleon is willing to sell this whole swatch of land. It's 875,000 acres. Who lives on, I know, Alma countryside, and some of us live in apartments or some of us live in town, but many people live on land. Who lives on at least 1 acre? Live on 1 acre of land. I don't know. See a couple hands. Yeah, right. Some of us don't even know what size of land we live on. I said Knox. You know how many acres your family lives on? 1.5. Mr. Taylor?
2.
2 acres. Anyone else want to share or no? Anthony?
25.
You know that, or you make yourself
That's
up?
cap.
Cap. I think my family lives on a 1 acre plot, right? 1 acre is kind of like the size of a little bit, probably a little less than a baseball field, right? A youth baseball field. 1 acre. Thomas Jefferson buys 875,000 acres. And do the math. $15 million divided by 875,000 acres. How much money per acre?
Like 2 million.
Renee, what was it?
10 million.
No, 15.
Four.
4 cents. Yeah, well, we're good. 4 cents an acre. 4 pennies per acre. So 7.
That's how much.
4 cents per acre. Now, those of you, what's up? That he sold it for $15 million. And if you break it down, it's 4 cents an acre.
How is that way?
Are we good? What are we giggling at?
No.
What's up?
So how many acres were there?
875,000.
So 800, that's not, the math is not adding up.
15 million divided by 875,000 acres. It's four cents.
So, Jefferson bought or a beer?
It's not adding up.
For the visual, though, 225 by 225 square.
4 cents.
So 1 acre,
Cause
4 cents.
100 acres ain't even gonna equal $1. $3.
That is stupid. That's $4.
Hey, Anthony, believe me, it's 4 cents an acre. We'll show you the math later. I'll take you over to Bordeaux later.
A horseshoe
Uh-huh.
and a hog.
That is nuts.
Okay.
That's our visual on the size would be like this hall, or that side of the hall, the courtyard, and then the next side of the hall, about 200 by 200 feet. Is, I think it's 223 by 223, is an acre square, so that times 875,000.
Hey, so, we got it. All right, little off track. Don't fight me on the math. It's about 4 cents an acre. Okay, real talk. It's about 4 cents an acre, which is a total bargain. Total bargain. These days, I know it's 2022. I know inflation, and some of y'all blame that on the president, right? How much can you buy an acre for in Alma, Georgia today? Anybody experienced with selling land? Your family sold land or something like
By
that?
like 8,000.
8,000. Any other guesses? Any other guesses?
No.
Now,
That's
it depends on where it is, in town versus, the swamp or the creek or whatever. But generally speaking, $4,000 to $6,000 per acre today. So 4 cents an acre, total bargain. Bottom line is a total bargain that we get to purchase all of this land. And remember the map, it's this big swath. It's called the Louisiana Purchase, but it's going to encompass all of these modern day states: Arkansas, Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, Wyoming, Montana, North and South Dakota, Colorado, Wyoming, etc. It's going to encompass all these modern day states. Even though it's the Louisiana Purchase, the state of Louisiana is a part of it, but we're going to get all these modern day states as well. So a little bit more about the purchase here. Jefferson is not sure he's allowed to make this purchase. Jefferson believes in strict interpretation of the Constitution. He believes if it's not in this paper, then what? If it's not in this paper, then what? You can't do it. He's a strict interpreter of the Constitution. But now he finds himself as the president. And he finds that it was one thing to have a belief when I wasn't in the job, but now I'm in the job and I find myself in a little bit of a pinch because I have this opportunity to buy this land, and I do really want to buy this land, but the Constitution doesn't say that the president can buy land. If you were Jefferson, what would you do?
Buy the land anyway.
Buy it anyway? Why?
Good deal.
Why
Because it's a
not?
good deal. You can see that Jefferson, so you guys can come up with a bunch of reasons, a bunch of different reasons and a bunch of answers. You can see that Jefferson in the job now sees that leading a country is a little bit more difficult than I thought. And you guys might find yourself there sometimes too. You guys might think that your class officers came up with a dumb prom theme, right? But then if you run for class office and you get into that position and you have to come up with a prom theme, you're going to realize, oh, it's a little harder than I thought to get everyone to agree to something, right? We can see that a lot in our life. We may think one thing when we're not in the job, but then when we get in that position, whether it's sports or student council or church or family even, you're like, oh yeah, it's a lot harder than I thought. I bet, Mr. Taylor, parenting, a little bit harder than you thought?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll go with that. Parenting's a little bit harder than I thought. So Thomas Jefferson, he stretched the Constitution in a way that it's almost like so much for limited government. He was the guy that wanted to have a weaker central government with more power to the states. But as soon as he was president, he's got this land deal in front of him. He's like, you know what? Maybe I can stretch the Constitution a little bit. He buys the land. Whether he believed he could or not, he buys the land. And in doing so, it is said that he stretched the Constitution. I want you to write this down under Louisiana Purchase. Jefferson's writings show that he had a strict interpretation of the Constitution. However, Jefferson's actions show a very loose interpretation of the Constitution. His writings before he's the president, he's all about strict adherence to the Constitution. However, when he's in the presidency and he's in the position of actually making these decisions, he now has a very loose interpretation of the Constitution. So I want you to think the difference between his thoughts and his actions. He thinks one thing, but his actions actually show a different thing. And that's why there's a thought bubble versus the action board. His thoughts versus his actions. Anthony, a really great place to write this would be right here. Thomas Jefferson. In his writings, he has a strict interpretation of the Constitution. In his actions, he demonstrates a very loose interpretation of the Constitution. Jefferson gives a report to Congress. It's basically like the State of the Union. He gives a report to Congress over the Louisiana Purchase, and he admits, I may have stretched the Constitution so far that it cracked. So that's a big admission from a man who was a very strict interpreter of the Constitution. He says, I stretched the Constitution so far that it cracked. And there's that quote right there. I stretched the Constitution until it cracked. Big difference in what he was raised to believe and then how he actually acted in the position. So I think I made that point. Move on a little bit more. The purchase itself, here's how he justifies it. He uses his treaty-making power. Go back. All right. I'll give you a second to write down. Got years of note-taking experience. I got to remember you're still gaining your years. Now, everybody kind of wants to. Anybody who is in the position to make a decision, big decision, has got to do some damage control if that decision doesn't follow what their previous beliefs are. Here's how Jefferson does damage control. He says that the Constitution gives the president the power to make treaties with other nations, right? Treaties related to war, treaties related to peace. So he says, I'm making a treaty with France to acquire this land. He doesn't say it's a purchase. He doesn't say that he is using the country's money, going in debt to buy this land. He says that I'm making a treaty with France. So technically, under a treaty, he is allowed to acquire the land from the United States, and that's what he means by stretching the Constitution. But even he knows that he probably cracked it along the way. I stretched the Constitution until it cracked. A couple more words here. Using his treaty-making power, he acquires the land, spends $15 million to double the size of the United States. That is one of those U.S. history facts that you're just going to have to not forget. And I tried to bring it alive for us. I cut the room in half. Half of our room was organized. Half of it was not. After our little skit, we acquired the land and we doubled the size of the room. That's what the Louisiana Purchase did to the United States. It doubled the size of the United States. And you can see the picture here. Bring it alive for you. The United States before the purchase, and then the red is the size of the purchase. That is doubling the size of the United States. The West Coast has not been organized yet. Here you see it in blue and orange. Doubles the size of the United States. So that's that last question there. what did it do to the United States? It doubled the size of the United States. That's what you need to be writing down. That's what you need to know. Ladies, something to share with the class? I didn't figure. All right, so having purchased this, having doubled the size of the United States, having bought it sight unseen, what are we going to want to do? Explore it. You should now be on the Lewis and Clark expedition. I'm going to show several screens, so there's enough space for you to write down the important stuff. They lead a group called the Corps of Discovery. Now, when you look at that C word, how do you think you should say that word? Corpse. Looks like corpse, right? Something funny about English is we don't always pronounce all the letters. I'm helping you be a smarter person. Don't ever say corpse. That's not how you say that word. It's called a corps. Corps of Discovery. Some of y'all someday are probably going to join the Marine Corps. It's the same thing. C-O-R-P-S, Marine Corps. Say Marine Corps. So I'm teaching you to be smarter. You say corpse, you're going to sound uneducated. I don't want anyone to sound uneducated coming out of my room. Corps of Discovery. They do have 3 specific missions, what Benet said, I'm about to show you on the screen, but one of them was to try to find a northwest passage through the United States. People long believed that there was a water route all the way across North America. Now, plot twist, there's not. Today, of course, we have satellite imagery. We've explored every corner of the United States. There's not a water route across the United States. But at the time, I'll get you a second, Anthony, at the time, they thought if there's a water route right across here, that'd save a lot of time in trade, dealing with ships. This is before airplanes, but dealing in ships. If there's a water route across the United States, it'd save a lot of time in trade. We will later talk about a water route through Panama, what we call the Panama Canal, but we'll get there. Anthony, a hand?
For real haven't searched.
We have searched. We've searched every corner of the United States, and there is not a water route.
I'm saying like we searched everywhere in the United States. Every single spot.
I would argue through satellite imagery, overhead imagery, we have seen every surface of the United States. Are there hiding spots in the United States? Are there depths? Are there caves? Sure. But we have seen the surface of the United States. We know that there's not a water route across across North America.
But I'm saying like, do you think?
Anthony's a skeptic. He doesn't believe certain things. It's okay.
Anthony.
Do I believe that there's nooks and crannies in the United States? Sure. But do I know that we've seen the surface of the United States?
Yeah, but
yes.
Yes.
I'm moving on. Here they are, Corps of Discovery. I already talked about Second Weed Corps a little bit. 3 missions. Here's the first one. Find that Northwest Passage, a water route from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. There's not one, okay? There's not one. You can't connect rivers and lakes and creeks. You cannot connect a water route across the United States. It doesn't exist. So if they found one, that would be super valuable to trade. However, there's not one. The second mission was to take detailed information about plants, animals, mountains, valleys, geography, people that they discover in the territory. Thomas Jefferson wanted to know what kind of plants and animals were out there. He wanted to know if there was something valuable that we could grow and sell. He wanted to know if there was a large animal breed that has yet to be discovered. You know what he really wanted to find? He wanted to find a woolly mammoth. He believed that in the western United States, there would be a breed of a tusked elephant that today we might call a woolly mammoth. There wasn't, but he wanted to know if there was. And then most importantly, as we have interacted with Native Americans upon every colony we've talked about so far, he was sure there are people groups out there we haven't met yet. He wanted those people to know that they are now in the United States. As Lewis and Clark, Allison and Travion, as they came up to any people group, he wanted them to say, welcome, you are now an American, and we are extending to you, this is his fancy words, the full friendship and fellowship of the United States. That's kind of important because what has our interactions been with Native Americans so far? Yeah, we've had fighting at almost every interaction between white people, settlers, and Native Americans. Thomas Jefferson wanted them to know, I come in peace. You are now a part of America. Now, whether they received that or not, that would be up to them. But that was the mission of Lewis and Clark. They were supposed to extend, here this one is, the full fellowship of the United States to any people groups met along the way. And it's kind of a nice way of saying you're in my house now. You're in America now. So you have a government that is on the East Coast in Washington, D.C. And by the way, we're going to start taxing you eventually as well, right? As we organize the territory, all those things would start to come as well. They did have some positive interactions with the Native Americans. One was, of course, with Sacagawea and her people. There were some potentially negative interactions with the Native Americans as well. There was one Indian tribe that was actually stalking the Corps of Discovery called the Nez Perce. They were stalking them from the hillsides. When one person, one woman said, "Do not shoot or attack these white people. I have been rescued by the white people previously." She's saying that. So do not shoot these white people. So, they could have been massacred by the Nez Perce, but they were rescued by one woman who said, "Don't shoot these people." 3 missions. Northwest Passage, catalog all the plants and animals and people, extend the full friendship and fellowship of the United States to anyone along the way. A little bit more about the game, explaining the game here. So Lewis, Allison, you were Lewis, right? Lewis was actually Thomas Jefferson's personal secretary, right? His administrative assistant. But he had background in the Army. So since he's the one closest to the president, Thomas Jefferson said, "Hey, Lewis, I just bought this land. How about you go explore it?" So Lewis was given the ability to bring a team together. He called his Army buddy, William Clark. He's his battle buddy. Talk about battle buddies a lot. He brought his battle buddy onto the team. They got a couple dozen more people to help lift heavy things, drag the canoes, row the canoes, all that kind of stuff. They built the Corps of Discovery, and they set off. They set off from St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis at the time is known as the gateway to the West. Now today, nobody would call St. Louis a Western city, right? You look at St. Louis today, it's in the middle of the country. This is the West Coast. California, that's the West Coast, right? But at the time, St. Louis was right along the Mississippi River. So it was as far west as our country would come. Actually, to this day, there's a monument in St. Louis that is called the Gateway. Has anybody ever seen the Gateway before? That's right, the Gateway Arch. So I'll show you a picture here in just a second, but a big monument that looks like a gate that you're going to go through. And that's not actually the gate that they went through, but it's symbolic of stepping into the West through St. Louis. Knox, have you been there? Anybody ever been to the Gateway Arch? I'll show you a picture in just a second. It's kind of a cool place to visit if you ever travel to St. Louis. They set out in May of 1804. They don't expect to be heard from for over 2 years. But they said, "All right, well, we'll hear from you in a couple of years. Enjoy." And they set off. They set out in May of 1804. They reached the Pacific coast in November of 1805. So what is that, 1 year and 4 months? It takes them 1 year and 4 months to go across to get all the way to the ocean. And then what do they got to do? They got to go back. They start their way back, and they arrive in St. Louis in September of 1806. So what is that, 2 years and 2 months? It takes them 2 years and 2 months to go from St. Louis to the ocean and back. In that amount of time, they were unable to send messages back to Washington, D.C., right? There's none of this. There's none of this. So a lot of people in the organized territory, all the way to Washington, D.C., they wondered if they would ever come back. There started to be newspaper reports of Corps of Discovery, presumed dead. Lewis and Clark, will they ever return? Lewis and Clark, did they get lost? Did they die? All that kind of stuff. The newspapers started to speculate that maybe they wouldn't return until one day they arrived back.